Stop. Before you tell yourself you're being authentic right now, ask yourself this one question that changes everything. Who is watching you? Because here's what nobody tells you. You are not one person. You are running multiple versions of yourself simultaneously, and you switch between them so fast your conscious mind doesn't even register the shift. Think about the last time you picked up the phone, and your voice literally changed the second you heard who it was, or how you sit differently at a job interview than you do on your couch, or how you become somehow funnier, somehow quieter, somehow more agreeable around certain people. You didn't choose any of that. It just happened. That is not weakness. That is not fakeness. That is your brain doing something extraordinarily sophisticated that psychology has only recently started to fully decode. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why you do it, what it reveals about your core identity, and what it means about every relationship in your life. Stay with me because this one genuinely rewires how you see yourself. Here is where most self-help content gets this completely wrong. They tell you to just be yourself. 3 words. No explanation, no mechanism, no science, just be yourself. As if you have one solid, fixed self sitting in a drawer somewhere waiting to be released. But that advice fails for a very specific reason. It assumes that changing your behavior around different people is a flaw to fix. It is not. It is a feature. In 1959, a sociologist named Irving Goffman published research that shook the academic world. He studied thousands of real human interactions and concluded that we are all, every single one of us, performing. Not lying, not faking, performing, like actors on a stage. The failure of most advice is that it tries to make you stop doing something your brain was literally wired to do over millions of years of evolution. You cannot stop switching versions of yourself, but you can understand why it happens. And that understanding is where actual self-awareness begins. That is exactly what we are going to build right now. What I am about to walk you through is built on 3 interlocking psychological principles. Together, they explain the full picture of why you are different around your boss than your best friend. Why you act one way around your parents and an entirely different way around a stranger you find attractive, and why sometimes, in certain rooms, you feel like the most real version of yourself, and in other rooms you feel like you are wearing a costume made of someone else's expectations. These 3 principles are social role switching, audience design, and identity anchoring. Each one operates in a different layer of your psychology. The first is mostly unconscious. The second is semi-conscious. The third is where your actual sense of self lives. When you understand how all 3 interact, you stop feeling confused or even ashamed about why you are different around different people. You start seeing it as data. Data about who you are and what you actually value. Let's go. Principle 1 is called social role switching, and it happens completely below the level of conscious thought. Here is the mechanism. Your brain has been logging behavioral data since the moment you were born. It has tracked what worked, what got you accepted, what got you rejected, and what kept you safe in different social environments. By the time you are an adult, your brain has essentially built a custom behavioral profile for every type of relationship you have. Son or daughter profile, employee profile, friend profile, romantic partner profile, stranger profile, and the switch between these profiles happens in milliseconds. Neurologically, researchers at MIT in 2017 found that the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain handling social behavior, can shift its dominant activation pattern within 300 milliseconds of recognizing who you are interacting with. 300 milliseconds. That is faster than a single eye blink. So the next time you feel slightly jarred when your work colleague meets your best friend and you suddenly do not know how to act, that is 2 profiles colliding simultaneously in real time. Your brain is searching its entire social database trying to find a role that fits both audiences at once. It almost never has one. And that confusion? That is completely normal. That is not an identity crisis. That is just your prefrontal cortex doing its job with an unusual input. Principle 2 is where it gets even more interesting. It is called audience design, and unlike social role switching, which is automatic, this one involves a layer of real-time cognitive calculation you are running almost continuously without knowing it. Every time you are about to speak or act in a social situation, a part of your brain is rapidly modeling the person in front of you. What do they know? What do they believe? What will they respect? What will make them like me less? Linguist Herbert Clark at Stanford identified this in the early 1990s. He found that people do not just talk. They tailor every single utterance in real time based on their model of who is listening. You already know this instinctively. Think about how you explain your job to your grandmother versus explaining it to someone in your industry. You use different words, different energy, different confidence levels. You are not dumbing it down for your grandmother. You are designing your communication for your specific audience. Now here is the part that makes most people uncomfortable. Audience design is not just about words. It is about personality projection. You are deciding in microseconds which facets of yourself are relevant and safe to show this particular person, which means you have been editing your own identity your entire life, every single day. The real question is not whether you do this. The real question is whether the version you show most often is the version closest to who you actually want to be. Principle 3 is the one that actually matters most for your sense of self, and it is the least talked about. It is called identity anchoring. While your brain is busy switching roles and designing performances for different audiences, there is a deeper layer of your psychology that is stubbornly consistent. Your values, your humor when you are genuinely comfortable, your physical reactions to things that feel wrong, your actual taste in ideas. These do not change based on who is watching. They are your identity anchors. They are the parts of you that persist even when everything else is adapting. Here is how you find them. Think about the last time you were in a social situation and you felt something inside you quietly go no. Maybe you laughed at a joke, but something underneath did not think it was funny. Maybe you agreed with something in conversation but drove home feeling vaguely dishonest. That tension you felt is your identity anchor pushing back against the performance. Research from the University of California, Berkeley, published in 2021, found that people with stronger connections to their identity anchors report 34% higher levels of life satisfaction and significantly lower social anxiety. Because they know what is performance and what is core. They do not confuse the costume for the person underneath. Your identity anchors are not loud, they are quiet, but they are the most honest thing about you. Learning to hear them is the beginning of genuine self-knowledge. Now here is where it all snaps together. Social role switching is your brain operating on automatic. It is the hardware. Audience design is the software running on top of it, making real-time adjustments. And identity anchoring is the operating system underneath both. The reason you sometimes feel deeply uncomfortable in certain social environments is not because you are fake. It is because the gap between your automatic role, your design performance, and your identity anchors has become too wide. You are too far from your own center. This is what psychologists call self-discrepancy theory, first mapped by E. Torrey Higgins at Columbia University in 1987. When the version of you that you are presenting becomes too distant from the version of you that you believe you actually are, your brain registers that gap as psychological distress, anxiety, low-level shame, a vague sense that you are wasting your life on things that do not matter. Sound familiar? The people who seem the most comfortable in their own skin are not people who stopped performing. They are people whose performances stay close to their anchor points. They switch roles, yes, but the core underneath all the roles stays consistent. That is not effortless personality. That is a specific, learnable skill, and it starts the moment you actually understand the three forces pulling at you simultaneously. Before you go, 3 mistakes almost everyone makes with this knowledge. Mistake 1, trying to eliminate role switching. You cannot and you should not. Adapting your behavior to context is a sign of high emotional intelligence, not inauthenticity. The mistake is letting adaptation drift into total self-abandonment. Mistake 2, misreading discomfort as inauthenticity. Sometimes you feel uncomfortable because you are growing, not because you are being fake. A person giving their first public speech feels uncomfortable. That does not mean they are betraying themselves. Context matters. Learn to distinguish growth discomfort from anchor violation discomfort. They feel different when you know what to listen for. Mistake 3, and this one is the biggest, trying to perform authenticity instead of practicing self-awareness. Authenticity is not something you broadcast. It is something you build in private by regularly checking in with your own anchor. Here is what I want you to take away from this. You are not lying when you act differently around different people. You are not two-faced. You are not broken. You are a deeply sophisticated social animal running ancient evolutionary software in a modern world. The version of you that shows up around your closest friends, the one that laughs without editing it, the one that says the weird thing and does not apologize for it. The one that forgets to perform, that one is not more real than the others. But it is the one your brain is least afraid of. Start there. Start paying attention to when that version appears and when it retreats and why. That awareness alone will change more about your social life than any amount of advice about how to be more confident, more likable, or more charismatic. If this video shifted something for you, share it with one person who you think is performing too far from their own center right now. They need to hear this. Subscribe if you want more content that takes human psychology seriously, and I will see you in the next one. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and